I walked sleepily to the bathroom. I started brushing my teeth and looked into the mirror. Looking back at me was my arch-enemy, Mrs. Davis. I'm Sarah, and until yesterday, I was just a 13-year-old student. Now, I'm a math teacher. Last night, I saw something that looked like a shooting star racing across the sky. I had to make a wish and made the stupidest one of my life. I wished that I could trade places with one of my teachers for a day. When I woke up, I was horrified to see my wish had come true. This was wild. How could this be possible? Another wave of shock went through me when I realized I wasn't even in my room anymore. This must be Mrs. Davis's house. I just sat down on her bed, completely dazed, trying to wrap my mind around what had happened. Well, whatever had happened, I knew what I was going to do. A grin spread slowly across Mrs. Davis's face as I stared back at her reflection. I was going to go to school and be the most fun teacher ever. Mrs. Davis needed to loosen up, live on the edge a little. I looked through her closet. Yuck, I thought to myself as I went through all the gray and brown pantsuits and blouses. Right at the back, I found a Metallica t-shirt. I ran my fingers through my hair and made it all messy. Next, I applied some thick black eyeliner. Perfect. I chuckled to myself. I opened the drawer to put the makeup away when I saw a crumpled up note in a corner. If you don't want your husband finding out your secrets, you'll meet me at our decided spot. I read out loud. Interesting. I was really curious about what that meant. Maybe I'd find out more later today. I put it back and looked at myself one last time before heading out. No one else seemed to be home. I got to school running a little late for my morning class. When I entered the classroom, all the students just stared at me, completely speechless. I gave them the widest smile. Good morning, lovelies. Sit down, sit down. How are you all this fine morning? I saw them exchange really surprised looks. I was enjoying this. Today is going to be such a fun day. What do you guys want to study? Do you even feel like studying today? I saw the kids exchange hesitant smiles and awkward looks, discussing what they wanted to do. Geometry? Someone suggested. Wrong answer. I'll tell you what. You guys have been working too hard for way too long. Who wants to go on a road trip? Let's make it a field day. I'll give you guys a much-needed break. Does that sound good or what? Yes, Mrs. Davis, the class said in unison. The delight on their faces just warmed my heart. I called up the school bus driver and told him to bring the bus around. Principal's orders. We boarded the bus and I whooped. By this time, the kids had caught up with the fact that I was probably just in a good mood, so they played along. We went to the nearby amusement park, and of course, everyone's rides were on me. There was plenty of money in Mrs. Davis's bag. I got everybody popsicles too. By the time we got back to school, it was evening. I had completely forgotten that these kids were supposed to get back in time so that they could be picked up, but it didn't bother me. This was so funny. Mrs. Davis was going to get into so much trouble. Serves her right. As expected, when we reached the school, I could see a large group of people waiting outside. They all looked angry, and I think I also saw the flash of a police car as we drove past. Girl, this is going to be a riot. As the bus stopped and everyone got out, the principal, Mr. Hopkins, called me into his office sternly. Hoppy, I'm so tired right now. Let's have this meeting tomorrow, okay? I said, yawning and stretching my arms. I could hear the kids giggling, and Mr. Hopkins had turned a deep shade of purple. We'll have this meeting now, Mrs. Davis, he managed to say through clenched teeth. I let out a big sigh and followed him to his office. And, of course, he just exploded on me. What has gotten into you today? Do you have any idea what you've done? Do you know how much trouble this has caused all the parents in the school? He asked, looking extremely pissed. Yo, chill. You're going to give yourself a heart attack, old man. I understand if you want to fire me. I deserve it. Later, hater, I said and turned around, trying not to burst out laughing. Wait! You know I can't fire you. You're way too important to our operation. My ears pricked up. What operation? He was still going on. But this kind of behavior won't go unpunished. You're not getting your cut from the next donation. And it is going to be a big one. I'm guessing I'll have to spend that money by myself this time, he said, an evil look in his eyes. Boy, I had a feeling I had stumbled onto something big. I had to keep pretending like this wasn't news to me. Why not? I'm not going to help you if I don't get my share of the money, I told him. You should be glad I'm not completely cutting you off. And don't forget that I know all about your past. I could destroy you. So, of course, you're helping me. Now, get out of my office, he said menacingly. I left the office trying to process everything I had just discovered. Mr. Hopkins was stealing from the school's donations, it seemed, and Mrs. Davis was in on it. But it sounded a lot like he was blackmailing her into doing his dirty work. What did he know about her past that she so desperately wanted to keep a secret? So many questions! There was a ping on Mrs. Davis's phone, and I saw that I had a text from someone called Mark. Who is this character? There was a heart in front of his name, and that spoke for itself. Mrs. Davis had a boyfriend on the side as well. Since I was hell-bent on making her life miserable, I decided to make this part of her life worse too. I opened the text. "Hey babe, we're on for tonight?" I responded saying, "Nah, player, can't make it. Have some stuff to do. Laters." Almost immediately, the phone chimed again. "But I cooked for you. I was really looking forward to seeing you tonight. What changed? Are you busy?" "Nah, I'm just not in the mood. Maybe I'll go spend some time with my husband." "Why are you acting this way? You know I went out of my way to make you feel special, especially after everything you are going through at school." So Mrs. Davis's boyfriend knew about this too? How far did this thing go? I decided to meet him just to see how much information he had. I texted him back, asking him to pick me up. And hey, a free meal would be nice. A little later, a car pulled up beside me and someone rolled down the window to smile at me. I could only assume it was Mark. We headed off to his place. He was a tall, skinny guy in his mid-30s. I realized soon enough that he didn't know anything about the scam Mrs. Davis was involved in, only that the principal had been giving her a hard time at work. Well, that was useless. And to top it all off, the dinner he had put so much effort into making was absolutely gross. Made me miss my foster mom's steamed broccoli. At the end of the night, Mark cleared the tables and came back and sat next to me. Uh-oh. Where was this going? I hadn't signed up for this. He leaned in and kissed me, and I pulled back in like 2 seconds. Ew! Jeez, Mark, your breath stinks. Maybe it's not the best idea to kiss a lady after a fish dinner. He looked rather offended, but I didn't care. Mrs. Davis should break up with him anyway. He was kinda lame. I told him I was in a hurry and would take a cab home. When I got to her place, I saw some lights were on. The husband must be home. I walked in and saw a scrawny little man with a frown on his face glaring at me. A man can't even get a decent meal at home after being away for a week. There's nothing in the fridge. You're the most useless woman I've ever met, he shouted. With that, he picked up his coat and keys and left. Thank God. I hoped he wasn't coming back tonight. And no wonder Mrs. Davis had a boyfriend. I was almost beginning to understand why she was so bad-tempered. I crept into bed and fell asleep almost instantly after the day I'd had. When I woke up the next morning, I immediately sat up straight to look at my hands and feet. I was back! Hello again, Sarah. I missed you. I could hug myself right now. I didn't understand yesterday's bizarre events, but I sure hadn't forgotten any of it or the secrets I now knew. And I was going to have my fun with them. I cut out some letters from a newspaper and made a note. I glued the letters on a piece of paper, folded it up, and left it under the duster on her desk. I know about your deal with Mr. Hopkins. You are in so much trouble. Mrs. Davis came into the room, saw the note, and quickly crumpled it up before throwing it in her bag. I saw her eyes widen in shock. I quickly looked away. I didn't want her to suspect that it was my work. I saw her fidgeting around all day, and it gave me so much satisfaction to know that I had really gotten under her skin. She wasn't mean to the students, she gave us no surprise quizzes, and even her teaching was absent-minded. I was having a great day. The next day before class, I left another note. Does Mr. Davis know about Mark, Martha? She went as white as a ghost the minute she laid eyes on it. She looked like she was going to pass out. Again, she didn't say anything, but went on with her class. But she wasn't really doing a great job. I was totally enjoying my position of power. With great power comes great responsibility, said a wise superhero once. I had to use my knowledge for the good of all my fellow students. I decided it was time to leave her another note. This time, I tried to be more threatening. Maybe you should treat your students better if you do not want this information to get out, Mrs. Davis. When Mrs. Davis saw this note, I knew she'd had enough. I made the mistake of including students in this, which meant she knew it was one of us doing it. She stood in front of the class, cold and calculating, and asked, "Which one of you did this?" I played stupid, giving her a questioning glance like I had no idea what she was talking about. She looked at each of us, and as nobody answered her, she said, "Whoever this is, you're going to regret it." Bone-chilling stuff, I laughed in my head. After school ended that day, I was walking back home when someone suddenly grabbed me by my arm and pulled me behind the garbage cans. It was Mrs. Davis, and she looked extremely angry. "I know it's you who's been leaving those little notes, Sarah. Do you want to fail my class and have to repeat this year?" She screamed at me. "I don't know what you're talking about," I tried to protest. "Oh, yes, you do," I don't know how it could have possibly happened, but I know you spent a day being me, and you just went poking your nose around in my business. And I spent a day being you, curled up in bed all day and pretended to be sick so I wouldn't have to go anywhere. And you know what? It was the best day I've had in years. She looked at me in fury and held onto my arm so tight I almost cried out in pain. You've had your fun. Whatever you think you know about Mr. Hopkins and me, it would be best for you to stay away. I'm warning you, Sarah. On that ominous note, she walked away. As I walked back home, deep in thought and rubbing my arm, a car came out of nowhere beside me and someone pulled me in roughly and put a gag in my mouth. I frantically tried to scream and kick, but not for too long, as suddenly everything faded to black. When I woke up, I was bound to a chair in a dimly lit room. I was absolutely terrified. Where was I? Who had kidnapped me? I'd never been more scared in my life. A little later, Mr. Hopkins walked into the room. He had the most evil smile on his face. You're in a lot of trouble, moron. Mrs. Davis had been acting weird lately, so I slipped a little bug into her bag. You know way too much for your own good. Now I have to figure out what to do with you, he said, leaning on the wall next to the door. That's when I started noticing where I was. It looked like an old house. I couldn't see out of the window, but the sounds outside didn't seem like they were from the middle of the town. But then I felt everything closing in on me again. The next time I woke up, it was to some very loud knocking on the door. Mr. Hopkins, let me in! It was Mrs. Davis. Mrs. Davis, what are you doing here? I heard Mr. Hopkins say. He definitely sounded surprised and not at all happy. Where's the girl? Mrs. Davis demanded. What have you done to her? There was a pause. Mrs. Davis, you've put our whole operation at risk by not being careful enough. And I'm having to clean up your mess now. You don't worry about the girl. I'll deal with her. Now that you've turned up here unannounced, you might as well be useful. I need you to look over the accounts of the last donation we received, the principal said. I'm not doing anything for you till you let the girl go, Mrs. Davis shouted. Enough of your nonsense, Mr. Hopkins snapped back angrily. Do you want that horrible husband of yours and all the parents knowing that you used to be a stripper? You'll be homeless and jobless before you know it, and those loans aren't going to pay themselves off. You need the money, and you are going to do exactly what I say. Wow, were the secrets ever going to stop coming? That's the last thing I had imagined would be Mrs. Davis' secret, and she had come to rescue me? I'm not scared of you anymore, Mr. Hopkins, and I found the little bug you left in my bag. I've used it to record everything you just said. I heard Mr. Hopkins snarl, and it sounded like he had knocked some furniture over. He was going to hurt Mrs. Davis, and there was nothing I could do to help. Just then, I heard the door burst open. Police! Get down on the ground, now! The next time I woke up was in the hospital. I had some vague memories of being carried out of the house. Mrs. Davis was by my side. She explained that I had been missing for 2 days, and she had found the electronic bug in her bag and put 2 and 2 together. She called the police and told them everything. She knew of his house in the woods because they had met there a few times to discuss business. Just as I was wrapping my head around everything, someone ran in through the doors. It was Mr. Davis. You! There you are! He screamed at Mrs. Davis. I've been looking everywhere for you, and just found out you've been busy looking for some idiotic student of yours? I've had to eat your disgusting frozen meatloaf for the past 2 days. I am just through with you. Mrs. Davis looked at him with utter disgust. Dude, I already have a boyfriend. You wouldn't have noticed, but I've already moved out half my stuff. That meatloaf is the last piece of cooking you'll get out of me. Just get out of here!